You're listening to Echoes of Code. Tonight's story is called The Crosswalk That Went Silent. So get comfortable. Let the day drain out of your muscles. And follow Erin on their walk home, down a street that doesn't sound quite right after midnight. Erin didn't used to notice the sound of their own neighborhood. It was just there. The distant hush of the highway, the occasional car rolling past, the dry whisper of gum leaves rubbing together above the power lines. Even the soft click and hum of the old streetlights was part of the background, like a fridge in another room. Noise you only hear when it stops. Most nights, Erin walked home the same way. Down the footpath, past the little corner milk bar with the peeling lotto posters, across the narrow main road at the pedestrian crossing, then 3 more blocks to the tired brick unit that always smelled faintly of someone else's cooking. It was a habit born out of necessity. Driving felt like too much work after late shift, finding a park near the unit, dragging themselves up the stairs. It all felt heavier than just walking and letting their head cool down in the air. So the walk became the buffer between fluorescent lights and a dark bedroom. 15 minutes of half-awake autopilot, footsteps, breath, traffic. Until one night, the traffic went away. Not in the obvious way. Not like a sudden blackout or a power cut or an apocalypse. Just one step at a time. It was a Thursday, or maybe a Tuesday. The kind of night that blurred into the one before it. Erin tapped their staff card against the sensor at the building entrance, gave the security guard a tired nod, and stepped out into the car park. The air was cool against the sweat at the back of their neck. They pulled their backpack onto one shoulder, adjusted the strap so it didn't dig in, and started the familiar path home. They checked their phone once, 11:56 p.m. If they didn't dawdle, they'd be in bed a little after midnight. They liked that. Something about crossing the threshold from yesterday to today while already lying down. The walk began the way it always did, past the darkened shop fronts with their metal security shutters pulled halfway down, past the bus stop with the broken light. Nothing but a white timetable glowing under the street lamp across the road. Past a row of units with mismatched curtains and a single flicker of a TV in a ground floor lounge room. The world hummed along. A car rolled by, tires hissing on the bitumen. A dog barked once, twice, then gave up and went back inside. Somewhere far away, a truck shifted gear and groaned uphill. Erin breathed in slow, steady, counting their steps without meaning to. By the time they reached the pedestrian crossing, they were halfway out of their work brain. The crossing sat at a gentle dip in the road between 2 side streets. A set of white zebra stripes, a metal pole with a button, and the little box that made the slow, patient beep, beep, beep while you waited for your light to go green. Erin walked up, thumb already reaching out. Click. The button gave that small mechanical pushback. The familiar slow ticking started. Beep. 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 They didn't really look at the lights. They never did. It was muscle memory. Wait, listen. Then when the beep sped up, step off and cross. Traffic flowed steadily in both directions. Headlights washed over Erin's shoes and legs, smearing their shadow across the pavement. They watched the cars without really seeing them, eyes slightly unfocused, mind already in the shower at home. The light flicked over. They heard the change in the signal. B, 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 B. Erin stepped off the curb, and sound went away. It didn't vanish all at once. It was more like walking into a room with a thick door and feeling the noise from the hallway soften behind you. One foot hit the white paint of the crossing, and the roar of tires faded. The second foot landed, and the hum of the streetlights thinned out. By the third step, the beeping of the walk signal simply wasn't there anymore. Erin stopped. They didn't plan to. Their body just halted, like it hit an invisible second curb in the middle of the road. The first thing they noticed was their breathing, or rather, the absence of it. Their chest still rose and fell, but there was no soft rush of air in their ears. Their backpack strap creaked slightly as they shifted their shoulders, or at least it should have. Nothing reached their ears. They blinked, turned their head. Cars rolled past on either side, headlights sweeping over Erin's face, the front of their jacket. Tires turned, tail lights glowed red, yet the road was as silent as an image on a screen. Even their footsteps, nothing. Erin could feel the impact of their last step still in their ankle, the tiny tremor in their muscles. But it was like someone had muted the entire world and forgotten to unmute it. They stood there for 3 slow heartbeats. 1, 2, 3. Their pulse pounded at the side of their neck, deep and muffled, like hearing it through a pillow. No cars honked, no engines idled. The night insects that usually trilled in the trees above were dead quiet. Erin glanced at the far curb. It was only a few steps away, just a bit of paint and asphalt. They swallowed. They didn't hear that either. Okay, they told themselves. You're tired. This is weird, but you're just tired. They stepped forward again. As soon as their shoe touched the far curb, the world slid back into place. The hiss of a passing car appeared mid-note, like someone turned the volume dial back up. Distant traffic growled. A dog barked again. The crosswalk signal finished its fast beeping and returned to its slow, patient tick. Erin stopped, hand still clenched on the strap of their backpack. They listened for a moment longer, heart drumming against their ribs. Everything sounded normal. They glanced back at the crossing, the white stripes, the pole, the button. Their stomach did a small, uneasy flip that they smoothed over with a sigh. Just tired, they muttered under their breath, and heard their own voice normally again. By the time they reached their unit, they'd already started talking themselves out of it. Maybe the cars just lined up right. Maybe their ears popped. Maybe they'd zoned out and only thought the sound had gone away. By the time their head hit the pillow, the silence in the middle of the road felt like a half-remembered dream. It didn't stay that way. 2 nights later, the crossing did it again. This time, Erin was ready. They told themselves they weren't. They promised they'd forget, that they liked their route home just the way it was. But their body told on them. Their steps slowed as they approached the crossing. Their fingers hesitated half a second before pressing the button. Click. Beep. 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 A car slipped by with music faintly thudding inside, the bass just audible from the street. The air smelled faintly of something fried from a nearby takeaway. Erin watched the signal. When the beeping sped up, they took their first step deliberately, noticing the placement of their foot, the heel, the toe. They stepped out, and again the sound tugged itself away like someone drawing a curtain. The music from the car didn't fade. It simply wasn't there anymore. The beeps cut out mid-pulse. The night narrowed around Erin's body, the open air suddenly feeling heavy and padded. They kept walking this time, pulse quickening. 1 step, 2, 3. The silence held. Cars glided past behind an invisible pane of glass. Tires rolled, but not a whisper reached Erin's ears. They lifted their foot and deliberately stamped it down, a little harder than necessary. Nothing. Not even a dull thud through their bones. Their chest tightened, not from exertion, but from sheer wrongness. It lasted as long as it took to cross the painted white lines. The instant their next step touched the far curb, the noise rushed back in all at once. The walk signal was still beeping its fast pattern. A motorbike zipped by, engine buzzing. Somewhere behind them, someone laughed too loudly. Erin exhaled, shaky and slow. "Right," they whispered, heart hammering. "Okay, so that's a thing." They looked back once, then forced themselves to keep walking, focusing on the feel of the path under their shoes, the rustle of leaves, the normal night. Sleep took longer that night. Every time the world outside their window dipped a little quieter, Erin held their breath, listening for nothing. Over the next week, the crossing became less of a background feature and more of an uninvited experiment. Erin tried to ignore it. They really did. But curiosity has sharp edges, even when you're exhausted. The third time, they approached early. No cars on the road yet, just the slow blink of the orange traffic lights switching between directions. The world was already relatively quiet. They pressed the button. Beep, beep, beep. They stepped off the curb and stopped halfway onto the first white stripe. Sound fell away like a trapdoor opening beneath it. Erin lifted one foot and retreated back to the pavement. As soon as their soul landed on the safety of the curb, the beeping returned, mid-note. A lone car rounded the bend, tires whispering against the road. They stood there, testing it. Forward, silence. Back, sound. They did it 3 times, feeling ridiculous and unsettled all at once, until a pair of headlights appeared far down the road, and they forced themselves to just cross like a normal person. The silence hugged them for those few steps, indifferent and complete. Back on the far side, Erin's heart hammered against their ribs like it was trying to get out. They didn't talk to anyone about it. There was no one to tell, really. The people at work were all versions of the same tired face, 2 wrapped up in rosters and emails and passive-aggressive notes on the staff room fridge. Who wanted to hear about a quiet road from someone who always looked like they needed sleep? It wasn't until the night with the stranger that Erin realized the silence could hold more than just them. It was a colder night, with a thin wind pushing crisp leaves along the gutters. Erin's breath steamed in pale clouds as they walked. Their backpack felt heavier than usual, shoulder muscles sore from a long shift hunched over a computer. Their eyes burned. They saw the silhouette from half a block away. Someone else was already standing at the crossing. It was unusual enough to make Erin slow down. They rarely saw anyone else out walking at that hour. Cars, sure. Uber drivers, shift workers, the odd taxi. But pedestrians, not often. The figure was standing very still beside the pole, hands slipped into the pockets of a long coat. Their head was tilted slightly down, as if they were watching the traffic, but not really tracking any particular car. Erin's shoes scuffed lightly on the footpath as they approached. The stranger didn't look around. Up close, they seemed ordinary, medium height, dark hair. A face that was neither particularly young nor old, washed out slightly by the overhead streetlight. Their features blurred at the edges in that way everyone does when you don't stare. Erin nodded a little, an automatic social reflex, and reached for the button. Click. Beep. Beep. The two of them stood side by side, facing the road. For a moment, Erin wondered if the silence would still come with someone else there. Maybe it was personal, some weird brain thing, some glitch in their perception. The light for the cars clicked to red. Headlights slowed. The beeping sped up. The stranger stepped forward. Erin matched their pace, more from habit than intention. They crossed the invisible line together. And the world vanished. No engines, no beeping, no rustle of wind. Just the dull thud of Erin's own heart, so faint it was almost imagined. They felt their throat tighten. Beside them, the stranger turned their head. The motion was slow and deliberate, like it took effort to move inside the quiet. Their face rotated toward Erin, features settling into focus under the white streetlight glow. Their eyes locked onto Erin's. Erin opened their mouth to say something, maybe a joke, maybe a question. They didn't know. The stranger's lips moved first. They shaped a word, maybe two. The muscles around their mouth drew into a clear pattern, like someone whispering in a room you could see but not hear through thick glass. Erin didn't hear a thing. No breath, no syllables, not even the wet click of a tongue. Only the barest movement of skin and muscle. Their brain tried to fill in the blanks. Don't. Stop. Stay. It could have been any of them. For one suspended moment, it felt like the entire world was waiting for Erin to understand. They took a step back without meaning to, foot landing on another white stripe. The stranger's expression shifted, just slightly. Not anger, not fear, just disappointment maybe, or resignation. Then Erin's heel hit the far curb. Sound returned in a single, almost violent rush. A car horn blared somewhere behind them, far too loud. The walk signal finished its beeping and went quiet. The wind rattled leaves in the gutter. Somewhere, a bottle clinked in a recycling bin. Erin gasped, hand flying to their chest. They turned around at once. The crossing was empty. The stranger was gone. No one on the near side. No one halfway across. No one walking away up the side streets. No heels clicking. No footsteps fading. Just the empty white lines, the pole, and the small glowing red man above the opposite curb. Erin stood there, chest rising and falling fast, feeling the solid pressure of the curb under their shoes. The road hummed with normal traffic. A motorbike zipped through the yellow light. A bird shuffled in a tree. It was as if the person had never been there at all. The next day, Erin mentioned the crossing to someone in the smallest, safest way they could think of. They were in the break room at work, watching instant coffee swirl in a chipped mug. A colleague was scrolling their phone, half bent over the screen. The TV in the corner played muted news with captions. "Hey," Erin said as casually as they could manage. "You live sort of near Oak Ridge Road, right?" Their colleague glanced up. "Yeah, why?" "You know that pedestrian crossing down near the servo? The one between the two side streets, with the big gum on the corner?" A shrug. "The one with all the flowers on the pole for ages? After that accident?" Erin froze, fingers tightening around the mug handle. What accident? The colleague frowned, then went back to their phone. Couple years ago, before you started, I think, kid got hit there, late at night. Drunk driver or sleepy or both. There was something about no one hearing it happen. They squinted at the memory, like no one realized anything was wrong until they saw the car stopped in the road and the driver out on the footpath freaking out. Whole street full of houses, but nobody heard the impact. Weird, hey? They said it with the absent tone of someone recounting a headline they barely remembered. Erin swallowed. Yeah, they managed. Weird. They didn't bring it up again. That night, they considered taking a different route home. Skip the crossing. Walk an extra block to the traffic lights. Stay in the loud parts of the world. But habit and curiosity were stronger than fear. The air felt thicker that evening, like a storm was thinking about forming somewhere far out of town. The clouds were high and thin, barely veiling the stars. Erin walked slower. Each streetlight spilled its cone of pale yellow over the pavement. Moths pinwheeled around some of them, tapping at the glass. Others buzzed alone. When the crossing came into view, the white stripes seemed brighter than usual. Erin's hands were damp around their backpack strap. They stopped at the pole. For a long moment, they just watched the traffic. Cars flowed freely in both directions. No other pedestrians appeared, no strangers in long coats, just the steady pulse of late-night suburbs. Erin pressed the button. Click. They listened to it, really listened, as if it might change its mind halfway through and tell them something else. It didn't. It just kept beeping, patient and insistent. When the signals sped up, they stepped off the curb. This time they didn't hurry. They walked to the exact middle of the crossing and stopped, feet planted on a thick white bar of paint. The silence closed over them like warm water. No engines, no wind. Their own breath once again had no sound. They stood very still. For several seconds, nothing happened beyond the impossible quiet. Cars slid past in perfect muteness. A plastic bag tumbled along the gutter, its wrinkles moving but making no crinkle. Then, under the silence, Erin heard something else. It was so faint they weren't sure at first. A soft, distant beeping, not from the box beside them, but from somewhere else. Slightly out of sync. A walk signal that wasn't on this corner, or maybe not in this version of it. Footsteps, too, overlapping with their own stance. A rhythm of shoes on paint that didn't match their stillness. They didn't see anyone. They just felt the pattern in the air, as if someone else shared the crossing in a ghosted layer, half a second out of phase. Out of the corner of their eye, Erin caught the outline of a person at the far side of the road. They didn't turn their head. They didn't want to see another face too clearly. Instead, they kept their gaze on the white paint at their feet and listened. Beneath the surface of the silence, more sounds unfolded. A distant, echoing thud. The crisp, too loud tap of something hard against metal. A voice shouting, warped and far away like it was traveling through water. No words, just the shape of panic. Erin's chest tightened. They understood suddenly what the stranger might have been trying to say. Don't stop. Stay. Or maybe, don't stay. The meanings blurred together in the quiet, each one as likely as the next. Their legs prickled with pins and needles. The muscles in their calves trembled. They took one step forward, The faint other sounds grew sharper for a heartbeat. The beeping from nowhere sped up. The ghostly footsteps hurried. A cool pressure brushed past Erin's shoulder, like someone trying to squeeze by them in a crowded doorway. They flinched. The next step took them onto the far curb. Sound slammed back into place. Cars whooshed by. A motorbike roared somewhere up the road. Leaves shivered overhead. The walk signal finished its cycle and fell quiet. Erin staggered once, caught themselves, and turned. The crossing was empty, again. For a long moment, they just stood there, arms pressed in close to their body, heart rattling in their chest, louder than anything else. Then, slowly, they turned away and walked home. They didn't look back. Erin doesn't use that crossing anymore. They add 5 minutes to their walk and go up to the traffic lights, waiting under the harsh white glow while cars stream past in both directions. They stand near other people when there are other people. They listen to the cheerful chirp of the signal, the impatient rev of engines, the everyday noise of a street that never goes fully quiet. Sometimes, when they pass the old crosswalk from a distance, they don't even look at it. Just let it sit there in their peripheral vision like a photo pinned to a wall. But there are nights when the silence finds them anyway. Lying in bed, curtains half drawn, window cracked to let in the cool, they listen to the world outside. The occasional car, the soft hiss of tires on wet road when it's been raining, the hum of a neighbor's air conditioner, a dog, 2 streets over, complaining at nothing. And then, every so often, everything stops, just for a few seconds. The fridge in the kitchen, the ticking clock on the wall, the distant traffic, the insect that had been buzzing at the fly screen. All of it cuts out at once, like a hand has pressed mute on the night. In those moments, Erin lies very still. They don't turn their head to the window. They don't say anything. They don't even swallow. They just listen to the pure, heavy quiet pressing at their eardrums. And underneath it, faint and far away, they think they can hear the soft, urgent beeping of a crosswalk signal that doesn't quite exist in this version of their street. When the noise comes back, the fridge hum, the distant road, the soft shuffle of someone 2 units over going to the bathroom, Erin lets out a breath they don't remember holding. They close their eyes. They tell themselves that all cities have their dead spots, pockets of odd acoustics where sound behaves strangely. And they do not, under any circumstances, think about what might be standing in the middle of the road when the world goes silent like that. Not while they're trying to fall asleep. That was the crosswalk that went silent. If you're still awake, let the normal sounds around you be your guide back to your own street. And if, for a moment, everything goes perfectly quiet, just remember to keep walking until you're safely on the other side. Sleep well.